from my first book, Left for Dead, about how in life, our expectations are that things will always work out. The way that the mind works is that we always need some form of end result. Correct? For example, we go to the store. We get in our car. We put the address in our GPS and we follow the directions. We make sure that we go the speed limit, and our expectation is that we will arrive at our destination. Let's use another example for the younger readers. When we have an exam approaching, we spend time at the library. We read the textbook, we make the flashcards, we study the relevant material. We put in our due diligence of time to ensure that we will do well because our expectation is that we will earn a high grade on the exam. I'll give one final example that is relevant to my life. We go out for a friend's birthday, and when I leave at the end of the night to walk home, similar to the earlier example, we also follow the directions. We look both ways before crossing the street. We walk to the other side of the road, right, passing the bicycle lane, getting to the other side of the street. And when we reach that far, our expectation is that we will get home safely. By not getting in the car with an intoxicated driver or getting drunk, our expectation is that we will arrive home safely because we made the correct decision. But you know what? Life is funny. What we determine to be the correct path doesn't always equal the end result. Being chosen as the MBA commencement speaker was something I'll never forget. Seeing my parents smile across the stage as I'm up there speaking. And from that moment, I couldn't have imagined what it did for my future next. My name is Vincent A. Lanci, and welcome back to the fifth and final episode in my TBI recovery series. It has been a lot for me to record emotionally, as you can imagine, but I hope that you're getting the value that I intend of it and the inspiration and hope you need to keep going even when things don't feel like they're working out. We're brought to you today by ComingAlivePodcastProduction.com. Podcasts and books changed my life. If you want to get started today, head to ComingAlivePodcastProduction.com. And the brain injury was never an excuse for me, and I never wanted any pity or special treatment. I hope my story shows you that in life, there are no shortcuts. There are no real handouts. Everything takes hard work and dedication. Everything worthwhile, that is. I spoke in front of a crowd that's been larger than any other crowd I've spoke on since. And at the time of this book coming out, it is about 8 years since then. It was at the St. Pete Times Forum, which has since become the Amalie Arena, where the Tampa Bay Lightning play. And it was, again, just a memory I cherish forever. Thank you, UT, for giving me the opportunity to return to school to finish my undergraduate degree and then, of course, my MBA. On stage, looking around, seeing people not even on their phones, right? I'm seeing people making eye contact with me. After I'm done, I'm having people I don't know, family members, tell me how my talk impacted them. And through grad school, finishing up until the end of the day, I had been the opportunity to work with my coach and since now friend, mentor, holds a seat on my board. He's someone who guided me through the entire journey and couldn't have done without him. And of course, countless other people to thank. But Rod, thank you so much. And of course, a big thank you as I finish up this educational experience to Stephanie Russell Krebs, the Dean of Students, who's become a dear friend to my family and I. She was the Dean of Students when my accident occurred, came to the hospital a great deal. I know her family, Rob and the kids, honored to spend some time with them, having dinners and much more. So everyone that played a role in my life in this recovery, I want to thank you so much. So what happened right after this speech? There was no time like the present. I'm getting speaking gigs from people I know and in my network, receiving paid speaking gigs. And here's a big lesson learned, everyone. Just because you're getting paid doesn't mean you stop doing things for free. In fact, you need to incorporate pro bono opportunities, something I learned from a good friend, Debbie Lundberg in Tampa, of Presenting Powerfully, where you work in your pro bono activities strategically. The thing is, I was like, oh, if I'm getting paid for this already, $2,000 here, $3,000 here, why do I need to keep doing free things when in the reality, I should have? You're building credibility. You're getting your name out there more, which is going to lead to higher paid opportunities. The other reason why I should have done more free is because I had a lot more free time. I was seeing these small, microscopic pieces of success, right? Happening in decent frequency, where I think this is going to sustain when I had no real systems in place, no real structure at all. I didn't even have an assistant until right before I entered the Loth Entrepreneurship Incubator program at the University of Tampa, where I ended up circling back and returning there. But before we get there, too much free time when your brain is still healing. Your brain may always be still healing with a traumatic brain injury. One thing I learned, it's not a one-size-fits-all with your brain injuries and brains. Every brain is unique. Some recover uniquely. Mostly every single brain is going to recover uniquely. So again, the one thing I missed out on, and I'm hoping this book provides to you, is having a mental health network with not just advocates, but TBI survivors. In this book, you see how I've included other brain injury survivors. And I've also included how to contact them. You are not alone on this journey. Please, never give up. Eventually, things changed. I had a few more stints in corporate over time, but when COVID hit, as a school speaker, schools were understaffed, under-budgeted. There wasn't as many paid opportunities for me to sustain a lifestyle and pay my bills as a school speaker full-time. So, found myself back in the restaurant industry as a 28-year-old MBA graduate working as a busboy in a fine dining establishment. A lot of lessons learned working there, dealing with high-end clientele. I had the Yankee spring training nearby, so I've had Judge at my table. I've seen John Cena in there. Bands, other athletes, but at the same time, it was the most toxic work environment I've ever been in, by far, where I was treated like a pledge in a fraternity, as I describe it, right? Trying to get promoted to server, memorizing this menu with a brain injury, and then them still dangling that carrot in front of me to just keep putting in more time. If I was going to be a career employee in the hospitality industry, fine dining's where I would be, because you'd make the most money for your time and meet some very valuable connections. But eventually, I worked hard enough to get out of that industry and start piecing it together. That really happened when I entered the Loth Entrepreneurship Center incubator program at the University of Tampa. And up until this point, my mental health is not where it needs to be, right? I'm staying up late working in hospitality when my natural alarm clock is 3 o'clock in the morning to, well, it's 2:30 to 4:30, I should say. My whole body is thrown off. It throws off my schedule, my productivity. I'm overthinking about a lot more things because I'm overtired. I'm eating French fries and a lot of restaurant food and foods that don't improve my mental health, right? I will always talk about how I'm a 90s kid. I grew up on Happy Meals. I still do enjoy a Big Mac from time to time. But how do you feel after eating fast food opposed to how you eating healthy? So there's a lot to go into that. That's not what this episode's about. It's about my TBI journey. And getting up to the Loth Center, it was a huge accomplishment because a few months before that, I just onboarded an assistant. I said, hey, I only have some emails, things like that for now, but building that rapport when it was slow pays major dividends. You know, a huge shout out to Danica, who's been my right hand, helped me grow everything I've done from being a school speaker to then a speaker, an author, a podcaster, and now acting as CEO for Coming Alive podcast production. Everyone, a way to improve your mental health is by building systems, not just with your teams, but with yourself. I talked about time blocking. Every night before bed, I plan out my scheduled meetings and calls in a time block of fashion. And with that is also a time audit. with that, you see how much time you're really wasting. And if you're wasting it, you can reapply even to taking a break, going for a walk, exercise. Using these tools are things that truly help me get by in my day to day. As I'm putting the finishing touches on this book, I'm up in New York for the holidays and it's snowing. So my lifestyle is different. Taking walks isn't as frequent. I'm in the house a lot more, doing a lot more eating. So a lot to not make excuses about. I just make time for a different type of workout, like some abs on the floor, or I have those dumbbells that alternate weights so I can switch body parts from time to time. But I like to make sure I'm at least taking walks, going to the grocery store intentionally, even if it's for one thing, just because I know walking helps my mental health immensely. My entrepreneurial endeavors, of course, started with me speaking, but in graduate school, I worked for a company called WeView, where it was a startup company. And I started this job opportunity once I felt my brain could handle both school and work. And I met Saxon out one night, and then I soon met Taylor, who I ended up working for both of them, and became great friends while I was living in that part of Tampa. They're inspiring guys, both big in the entrepreneurial game. I've had them both on That Entrepreneur Show. So congratulations to you both on all your continued success. And I enjoyed this job because it kept me in a bit of a strict schedule, but it wasn't full-time like PwC, where it did incredible detrimental damage to my mental health because I was not only working at a job I didn't like, I was being overworked and, of course, in earlier level positions, undercompensated. I was truly trading my time and money, but at WeView, it was a startup company. So I was getting firsthand entrepreneurial experience. It's funny, at this point, I took the Myers-Briggs, or it's officially called the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Test in grad school, and it helps you understand yourself and how you understand others. And I was an ESTJ, which is starting with an extrovert. Now I would consider myself much more of an introvert as I've healed from my accident. I am alone most of every day. I have a lot of podcasts and FaceTimes, but as far as human interaction, it is very little. So now, as I have been scaling my company and building a great team around me, and of course, that doesn't mean I've kept everyone I've hired. Unfortunately, you have to have a lot of difficult conversations to people who aren't a good culture fit or taking advantage in some way. We want to make sure we're rewarding the people who do want to be there with work. But this is not a That Entrepreneur Show episode. If you want to hear more about that, you could head there. But as I'm alone, I find myself much more introverted. While I do, of course, love the occasional time out to catch up with people, I'm very disciplined and structured with my work schedule, and that's something that helps me immensely with the brain injury. Again, I'm tying back to that, staying organized, the time blocking. Stress reduces when you don't have much to worry about. I don't go on email and social media before I start my time block and the tasks that are right at the beginning of the day. Before I took the stage for my MBA commencement to speak, I had breakfast with the board of trustees and mentors, incredible CEOs in the community who gave me great confidence. And I remember specifically while I was at TGH, Gene McNichols, the owner of the McNichols company, visited me quite a bit to ease my family's pain and gave me the biggest hug as I was on the commencement stage. So that was great. But I spoke at commencement. I got those early gigs. Now what? That dried up. COVID happened. Went back to the restaurants. Got myself out of the restaurants by the incubator program. Stick around until the end of the episode because I'm going to be giving away a special bonus offer for listening to this show. So definitely you don't want to miss that. But earlier I talked about having too much free time. If you own a business, there is never enough time. And going to the Load Center, they helped me monetize an existing piece of business in just the interview process before I even was a member there. Again, a big shout out to the people I mentioned earlier because they really helped me focus and align things. And the goal is to not just build a company that works without you even involved, right? Build something that can exist without you needing to be there. Right now, we're heading down that path. I already mentioned all the great work Danica does. And as far as the head of ops role, we have Julie, who's been absolutely crushing it. Met at PodFest years ago before the pandemic. And our UVP, our unique value prop from competitors, is that we're actually podcasters. Everyone working for us is a podcaster, coaches podcasters, edits specific types of podcasts, you name it. So we have a lot of fun doing that. So I'm now going to share a piece from my first book, Left for Dead, about how in life, our expectations are that things will always work out. The way that the mind works is that we always need some form of end result. correct? For example, we go to the store. We get in our car. We put the address in our GPS and we follow the directions. We make sure that we go the speed limit, and our expectation is that we will arrive at our destination. Let's use another example for the younger readers. When we have an exam approaching, we spend time at the library. We read the textbook, we make the flashcards, we study the relevant material. We put in our due diligence of time to ensure that we will do well because our expectation is that we will earn a high grade on the exam. I hope you're enjoying today's show as much as I am leading the discussion. Remember to subscribe to stay current on our shows. I'll give one final example that is relevant to my life. We go out for a friend's birthday, and when I leave at the end of the night to walk home, similar to the earlier example, we also follow the directions. We look both ways before crossing the street. We walk to the other side of the road, right, passing the bicycle lane, getting to the other side of the street. And when we reach that far, our expectation is that we will get home safely. By not getting in the car with an intoxicated driver or getting drunk, our expectation is that we will arrive home safely because we made the correct decision. But you know what? Life is funny. What we determine to be the correct path doesn't always equal the end result. Even by making the right choice, something horrific happened. But at the end of the day, I didn't have a decision to make. The man who hit me made a decision to get behind the wheel after tossing a few too many drinks back. I didn't have any decision. The only decision I had was to turn the worst day of my life into the best day of my life. I psychologically turned this dreadful situation around to have the opportunity to present another book to you all. This is my opportunity to make a difference in the world. If you checked out any of my earlier books, you know I have the mental health series called Healthy Mind Book Series. I have my first book, Left for Dead. I have a book I wrote during the pandemic, an ebook on how to successfully work as a remote employee. We had the Healthy Minds book series with going to school for mommy and me aged toddlers. Mental Health Week, which I love because I'm the 5th grade teacher in that book for maybe 2nd grade to 7th grade. But it takes place as a 5th grade teacher. And then I have Mr. Lanci Talks Mental Health for older students and adults and faculty members. I did 2 co-authored books with Teresa Velarde, so those were a whole lot of fun. And then, of course, my most recent book, I Want to Start a Podcast. It is something that is similar to this book. I want to create a roadmap for you to find success. And that book is to start or grow your existing podcast and reach a top global ranking. In this one, it's to get back to a top global feeling, right? There is no limitations to what you can or can't do. I don't like using the cliches, and I mentioned that earlier, but if you work hard enough and you truly dedicate yourself, what does that look like for a young entrepreneur? Very little social life, especially at night. I'm dedicated. I leverage my morning productivity. Right? I always went to bed early, first one asleep at the sleepovers growing up, woke up early, try to catch my dad before he goes to work early, him watching ESPN, hopefully I can join him as he has his coffee. My electronics are powered down on work nights every night, but maybe 1 or 2 when I have a Coming Alive podcast production strategy call where I host a mastermind every month, or a West Coast call. I have dinner, I time block, ideally an hour before bed, I power down electronics. For whatever reason, again, science isn't my thing, but I always have a much better sleep, which evolves to a little side hack here. If you want a better night's sleep, if you think clearly by sleeping better, don't put your phone right next to your bed. Go on Amazon, get a cheap little digital clock with the time so you can see the time. But I always find not being on the phone pays major dividends for my sleep quality. I truly challenge anyone, not just TBI survivors, but support system reading on or listening on today. Your stress goes down when you know what to expect. Of course, life throws curveballs like getting hit by a car at you. You can't predict that, but you can do the other things and make a difference. Because I didn't have a budget for a very, very long time. I wore all the hats. There's 8 steps in the podcast process. I was school speaking. I was trying to grow all of those and market very unsuccessfully, but I learned a lot of lessons, right? And I had some success in collaborations, but not until I took the leap of faith, went back to school, 3-time UT grad, BS in finance, MBA, and Spartan Incubator graduate. The network I met there, the tools and skills I learned, I wouldn't be where I am without 2 major Tampa staples, Tampa General Hospital and the University of Tampa. I'm very honored and proud to travel to Tallahassee to speak to legislation and share my story at TGH. The skills I learned with my TBI are things that carry over to entrepreneurship. You need to be resilient. You need to never give up. And with time blocking, I punch in my exercise, my breaks. Those are things that work well for me with the TBI. Going in the sunlight, right? These very small things split up my day and extend me. One of the areas that did rise after my TBI is anxiety, and I work with it. And I think now is actually a great time as we wind down to talk about my therapy experience. I have tried a few. Therapy is not a one-size-fits-all. You can't say it's not for you without trying several. I eventually found someone I did click with. It was about a 45-minute drive out to Palm Harbor, Florida. Once COVID came, again, he started charging $749.99 a session. I obviously couldn't afford that, so that was the end of that. Launch a mental health break, my podcast to connect with others and normalize the conversation on mental health, honest and raw, vulnerable testimonials on that podcast. And it helped a great deal. When COVID happened, coincidentally after I launched the show, people were home all day. They wanted to go on a podcast and had something to do. A lot of the times they weren't video ready, so the shows are never been just video podcasts. You'll hear mixed feedback on that. I do have some videos on there. Some like video, some like audio, some like Apple, some like Spotify. But what I can say is if my journey has inspired you to just take the leap of faith and start a podcast. I had 1 or 2 downloads per episode. It was sad, but I had to keep going and do it. And eventually it started to pay off. I'm very grateful and appreciative for all my guests and listeners that help make top 5% global podcasts. Everything's a give back now. That Entrepreneur Show, we're giving back to small business owners, giving them some guidance in an industry that has no textbook or blueprint. A mental health break for the reasons I shared. Pod O'Clock to teach people how to podcast who don't have the budget for coaching, don't want coaching, don't want to do it with anyone else. They want to do it all on their own. So I try to give back in the areas I have strengths in or I can be an expert in, as well as my show, YouTube exclusive, Writing with Authors, that helps writers and readers and everyone in between, right? I talked about earlier in this book how everyone has a few strong suits, a few great skills. Those are my areas, and I just happen to put them into podcasts and books because that's the way I know how to share my information best. I hope you've enjoyed learning about me, and I thank you so much for supporting my journey. Now, at Coming Alive Podcast Production, there's different challenges as a business owner with my mental health. They're not TBI specific. I've shared other activities and tools that I use throughout this book. I want to remind you, it's never failure unless you give up. There are lessons learned in everything you do, and there's so many ways to grow, starting by taking that next step. Start with a big goal and then break it down into small, actionable steps so it's not scary and you can make progress and exceed your goals each day. With that, I'm signing off here. Vincent A. Lanci on a mental health break. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. I would love to hear your feedback. What did you love? What do you want to see more of? Are there any questions you would like me to ask the guests who come on the show? This show is not possible without you, the amazing listeners, so please email us at podcastsbylanci@gmail.com and let us know what you think. We'll also feature you on a later show. Please remember to subscribe to stay current with our amazing community of guests who will continue to come on the show, sprinkled in with solo episodes from me, Vincent A. Lanci. With that, I look forward to introducing more shows to you each and every week. And with that, we're signing off today. Enjoy the episodes and make it a great day ahead.